Hi everyone, my name is Jack Reynolds and I'll be helping to moderate today's webinar. Presenting today, we have two very knowledgeable members of the Xtime performance management team, Matt Warpinski and Will Crouch. They'll be walking through how new functionality in Xtime can be used for easy and accurate service quoting and pricing. A few housekeeping items before we get started. All attendees have been muted, but if you do have questions throughout the session, please put them in the console on the right-hand side of your screen. At the end of the presentation, we'll take a few minutes to go through what you've submitted. Additionally, a recording of today's webinar will be sent to all attendees once we conclude. You can also find a copy of the presentation deck in the handout section of your console. Matt and Will, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jack. And guys, we've got a lot of stuff to go over today. We've been working on, our product team at Xtime and DealerTrack have been working on some great things for you guys for the last few years. And again, really excited to show you guys how we can utilize what we've built to maximize your gross and efficiencies with the new estimating tools. So let me introduce myself. My name is Matt Warpinski. I am a manager of Xtime Client Performance Management and have been with Xtime for about 3.5 years now. Like most people in the fixed side, I grew up washing cars and writing service. So really excited to be joined today by my esteemed colleague, Mr. Will Crouch.
Thanks everybody for joining us. My name is Will Crouch. I'm another manager of performance management for Xtime. Same as Matt, I grew up as a technician and moved through different roles in the dealership before leaving retail and joining Cox Automotive. So we're excited to have you guys with us and on the call today.
Thanks, Will. Let's jump into our agenda. We'll get right into it because we've got a lot of things to cover. So we're going to go over a few high points right away. One price, one place, one time for all of your Xtime tools. I will be reviewing that. I'm also going to go over our new service quoting for schedule, which just came out the beginning part of May and is just an amazing tool that we can have in your stores right now. And then service pricing for inspect will be taken by Will. And then we're going to take a look at some new tools for the pricing admin and how do we do everything. And after that, we're going to jump into a Q&A session. So any questions you have, again, go ahead and throw those in the chat box on the right there. And I will jump right in. One price, one place, one time for all your Xtime tools. And when we talk about this one price, right, what does that mean? Well, call it what it is. When our BDC agents are quoting a price at the time of making an appointment, if the customer's online, if my technicians are adding services, right, we want to be able to have one consistent price. The customers customers demand that, and we need to make it as easy as possible. And to accomplish that, right, we've got to have all of that stuff done in one place. And that's what we have, our product team has built out. All of these items will live in our catalog, and we'll review some of that information in a little bit. But again, being able to update everything in one place instead of catalog and then working on the inspect price guide, it solidifies a easy process, which allows you to do everything one time. And that one time will then direct all that pricing to our scheduler, online, your internal staff, our quoting functionality, as well as our service pricing for inspect tools. So again, this is an efficiency that I think you guys are going to love. And the people that have had it have found some really big wins with it. So I'm going to jump right into service quoting for schedule. And to get you guys in the right mindset of what we're trying to accomplish, I have to tell you where our pain is, right? So if we're talking about here's a pain point, right? When a customer calls up looking for an estimate, and I know that shouldn't be a pain point, but it is. You've got a customer, their vehicle is broken down, it's one of your customers and they're at a different shop, or they're just getting an estimate and they're trying to figure out, should I be looking somewhere else to get this done? We have people that call our service department all the time and ask for those prices. So let's walk through this scenario real quick. We have a customer that calls us up and says, I need a alternator replaced on my vehicle. And what happens next, right? And guys, I hope you guys have a little bit of a sense of humor here, because while there's some humor involved in this, it's very serious, right? Our advisor places the guest on hold and rolls their eyes, because they know now, instead of having that car here, I've got to try and figure out what the price of this replacement part is and the labor. Okay, and they know it's not easy, so it's not what they enjoy doing. If you think you're a BDC agent, that phone call might just get quickly transferred back to an advisor, right? Think about that process. Your customer's calling in and getting that quote started, and the advisor's like, all right, here we go, let's do this. So that advisor says, all right, let's just take a quick peek. Let's look and see if I know where I can find the labor for this. Let's see if I've got it. We all have had those pricing programs. I use All Data and Identifix, right? But even then, as an advisor, I'm not entirely sure which one it is. So I'm going to go back and check with the technician. Now, that whole time, the customer's on hold, right? So I've checked in my database, and now I'm going, okay, I can't find it. I'm going to run back to my technician. And I get my labor time. So now I know what my labor time is. And I'm going back and I tell the customer, give me a second. And then I call parts. I need to get my parts price. So then parts ask me for the VIN number. I don't have this customer in the system. Shoot. The advisor asks for the VIN and the guest, guest doesn't have it. Car's not in front of them. They're not sure where to find the VIN. So my advisor calls back to parts and is trying to figure out how to get the information they need to get the part price and that estimate, right? And what happens next? My advisor and my parts guy get into a fist fight in the parking lot over the VIN that nobody could find, and then the guest is sitting there for 15 minutes and never actually gets their quote. Obviously, guys, this is an exaggeration and there's some humor involved in this, but we know, and if you've been in retail for any amount of time, you know that this is a pain point, right? And that's why I've got Mr. Forrest Gump there in that ping pong ball, because if you watch that movie, it's back and forth, and that's your customer in this experience, right? And so that's the pain point, right? So we're going to take a quick poll here, right? We're going to open up a poll for you guys. We want to see if this is something that you guys are experiencing on a regular basis. So we'll go ahead and give that about 45 seconds for you guys to answer that poll. And while we're waiting, I will say this, I nor Cox Automotive condone any form of violence over a VIN in a parking lot.
All right, looks like most attendees have had the opportunity to vote, so we're going to share the results here. It looks like 94% agree.
Okay, so I'm not talking to just a small percentage of our audience here. This is something that we all feel and see. So then let's dive into the next part of this, right? Service quoting for schedule, right? What does this what does this software solve problems for? And what we know is we can make a instant customer quote, right? We can create it very quickly, very simply, using the information that's in your catalog. There's a smart search functionality. So the system, if you type in LOF, is going to pull up an oil change, or vice versa. If you type in a generator, which is what some OEs call an alternator, it will pull up an alternator. It's a smart search functionality. It's not just an alphanumeric search. We're going to import that quote into schedule, right? So now I'm taking the quote that I just built. I can put this into schedule. I can schedule with it, and I can look up those quotes in schedule or in our quoting tool. So again, really cool stuff there. Here's something that we have, again, kind of talking about pain points. When we used to have someone call us up and ask for a quote, a lot of times we're grabbing a parts printout and handwriting the labor on there, then scanning it to ourselves via email, and then sending that to a customer. Guys, it's not pretty, right? And we now have the ability to send a PDF directly to a customer using a microsite via text and email, and it's super slick, super easy to use. It pushes the quotes to the RO via Engage, right? So it's actually going to push everything that we have information-wise as far as the op code and the pricing estimate to Engage, and then that's going to add that op code directly to the repair order and dealer track. So it's start to finish. As you're checking that customer in on the tablet, you're still seeing the pricing that you had on that quote in their appointment. And the quote dashboard tracks created versus converted. And this is something that I want to call out. I had a pilot dealer on quote that said they were slow and they wanted to start an email marketing campaign. And we did that. And then I thought about this for a second and said, well, how many quotes do we have that didn't get converted to appointments? That's a full list of customers that need work. So again, we're going to review that here when I jump into the live demo. And then here's another really fun thing. This is available for DealerTrack stores that have schedule only, right? So if you're a DealerTrack store, you have schedule only, you don't have the additional products, you can still get this, but it's also something that really ties hand in hand with all of our other tools and products. All right, so one more quick poll question, and then we're going to jump into a live demo. So the next poll question: currently, a customer could call my store and get different prices from different people for the same repair. You get the BDC agent or an advisor, right? Whoever gets that phone, we might have that. So we'll open the polls up here real quick for, again, another 30 to 45 seconds.
All right, it looks like most folks have voted. Go ahead and share the results here. We've got, again, 95% agreeing.
All right, so we can see there's a need for this, right? So I am excited. I'm going to hop out of our current PowerPoint here, and we are going to jump in to our quoting app. So as you guys can see, I've got one of our test stores up here, and we're going to go ahead and jump into quoting. And what I want you guys to call out right away when you land in quoting is how nice our dashboard system is. Okay, up top you can see how many we can change the date range, right? So we can see in the last 30 days 790. You can change the status of the quotes. You can specifically look at, you know, is it a completed quote? Is it one that's in progress, or the converted to appointment? And it gives us all of the metrics right here on the top. So we can see what was completed and unscheduled, what was converted to appointments. We can also see the different service types that were added in our quotes, right? So tons of good data on this top portion. And one thing I do want to call out, one of our pilot stores, Tomwood Lexus in Indianapolis, in 30 days on this pilot, they generated 282 quotes. They converted 79% of those quotes to appointments, and those appointments had a revenue of $38,000. And it's a really good story to tell because that store, the BDC agent that was doing this, lived in a different state. So, you know, this is a prime example of being able to utilize a system and a software for someone that isn't even in the store, right? And it was very successful. They put a process in place, and it's one that they're continuing on, and it's been a huge time saver for that BDC agent. So, again, this works. It's great. And so what you're going to see on the bottom here as well, we can start to sort. If you're familiar with our catalog, you can see here we've got similar sorting and filtering. If I wanted to take a look at a customer, I could go in here and search. If I want to say just filter to a specific advisor that was the one that was making those quotes, I can also look that, or a BDC agent, doesn't matter, whoever created it. So a lot of good information that you can see right here. And the other thing I want to call out, as a dealer, you want to be able to customize a ton of your stuff, right? So you can customize the quote expiration, because we know that parts prices are going to go up. We're most likely going to honor it for X amount of days, but you can put that right in here. We're going to honor it for X amount of days. You can determine what type of pricing you want to display to your customers. Certain states require us to have labor and parts, some do not. So we want to make sure that we're displaying what we should be displaying to our customers. And then I love this part right here. You guys have access to your disclaimer, right? This is a quote. We have to recognize this is a quote, that there may be certain things that pop up after disassembly of the vehicle, et cetera, et cetera. So we give ourselves a little bit of opportunity to tell the client, hey, this is what we're expecting, but there still may be additional pricing. All right, that's kind of a main overview of this dashboard. So what I want to do right here is show you guys how it works. So I'm going to go ahead and start a new quote. And I can find myself in the system. Now you can look up by phone number, email. I just chose my last name because I can spell that. And so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and pick my wife's vehicle, and as you can see, you're going to land in the services page. Now, one thing that you're not seeing here that I do want to call out, if there are declined services from the last visit, those will be displayed here, as well as any manufacturer open recalls if we have that OE integration. So guys, there's a ton of data for your BDC agents or advisors. One of the processes that Tomwood Lexus is, instead of scheduling out of schedule, they started scheduling out a quote because they had everything they needed here. Okay. Now, let's say we want to get an oil change. So I'm going to go ahead and add an oil change. And as you can see, we've got all of our information up top on the pay type, the hours, my fixed pricing that I have set up in that service in the catalog. You can see I'm pulling DMS parts pricing as well as what we have on hand in the DMS for this vehicle and these parts. Now, let's say I am not going to replace my drain plug. I can go ahead and I can remove that, and I'll replace that drain gasket. And again, I'm just kind of giving you guys, I'm not condoning not replacing drain plugs or drain plug gaskets. I'm just showing you guys the functionality, right? So we can change the stuff pretty quickly, and I'm going to go ahead and save that. So now my running total that I have is 5206, but I can still add some more services. I can edit or remove them, but I'm going to go ahead and hit add some more services. My tire integration with dealer tire is here, right? All my diagnosis are here. What I also want to call it that's pretty cool is menus. So if I have a normal or severe, I can update that. I'm in Wisconsin, so we're typically going to be looking at a severe number here, and we can go forward and backwards. So if I go ahead and I want to pick one of these, I can hit the drop down to take a look at what is included in this maintenance service, right? Here we go. We've got one a little bit more information in it, and we're going to go back to normal because I got one in here that's got a lot of stuff to be done. So right here, I can see I've got a larger package, $778. If I go ahead and select this, it's going to show me those individual services that I'm doing in the prices, and I can still edit those, right? So again, really helpful when I'm scheduling. I'm going to go ahead and add that maintenance service, and let's do this just for funsies. We're going to say that I have a check engine light. So I'll go ahead and jump into my check engine light. Now you can see I've got my pricing all set in the catalog, so it is locked in there. And we're going to go down to the bottom right here. So right here, I want to call this out. Any information that the client gives us in this section will push over directly to that line in dealer track. It will state customer states, and it will take the information from right in here and push that over to our repair order. So we're going to go ahead and save this quote, and you'll see what we get to do next. Right here is where I can send the quote to a customer, okay? Or I can schedule that service appointment, okay? Now, what does it look like when I send it to the customer? What they're gonna get is a email or a text, and it'll have a link to this PDF. And again, when we're talking about putting something in front of a customer that is professional, customized, this is really good looking, right? When was the last time that you were able to put a quote in front of a customer that explained everything you did? And again, going back to kind of the setups, if you don't want all this stuff to display, we can display just the package subtotal. And here is our disclaimer, so you can see it right there. All of that information, again, is something that you can update right at your fingertips. So really sharp PDF. It's a very good way to put that in front of your customer. But now let's just say, for example, we want to schedule this appointment. So I'm going to go ahead and hit schedule service appointment. And what you guys will see is it's going to take all that information that I just selected on that quote, and it's going to put it right in my appointment here. While it's loading in the background, you guys can see these are the 3 items that I had selected, right? Now, what I also want to call out, and this is pretty cool here, we can set this appointment at any time. It's based off of this quote, right? All the stuff is in there. If I need to add any additional services, I can do so. But if I want to go ahead and make that appointment, I can pick my day and time, and we will get this thing booked. Now, let's say, for example, we have a customer that calls in and wants to make an appointment. If I look up, say, for example, my esteemed colleague, Mr. Crouch, and take a look at Will, I can go into his Customer 360 profile, and what you'll see is on his 08 Tahoe, here's all of the service quotes that we've done for his vehicle. I can turn around and schedule this from here, right? I can see the ones that are valid, completed, in progress. You can even see the ones that are expired, right? So all the vehicles, you can see the quotes right here. Now, if I wanted to go ahead and just make a new appointment for Mr. Will, and I can schedule where is my Tahoe? We'll go ahead and schedule this vehicle. As you can see right here is my service quotes. So if I'm just starting to make an appointment, I'm going to be able to see all the service quotes right in my appointment screen. I can go ahead and add that, and now I'm going to be able to make my appointment. Guys, that is a walkthrough. As you can see right here, we've got all of the information from that quote preloading into that appointment. So it makes it really easy to add any quote that was previously done. You can look it up. You can make it directly from the quote functionality. Super slick, super helpful, super easy. That is my live demo. So from there, I will go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Crouch.
Excellent. Thank you. And Jack, if you could kick it over to my screen. And you should be seeing my service pricing and inspect slide. Is that what you see?
Looks good.
All right. All right. So next thing that we're going to discuss is service pricing and inspect. It's going to be separate altogether from service quoting. They're available. You can have one or the other or both, whatever you think best fits your business. But a requirement for service pricing and inspect is obviously to have inspect. Let's see. So we're going to start off with a poll, and poll question number 3 is, as a service leader, I'm not always certain where a quoted labor time comes from. It's a fair question. Another little bit maybe.
All right, looks like most people have had the chance to answer, so we'll go ahead and close that. And it looks like about 74% agree.
All right. And the reason I guess that I included that poll question is because in going around the country, there's any combination of ways that people will quote labor in the shop. So that may be a technician that is going to look up your warranty time and then multiply it by 1.7. You may be using, like Matt referenced, Identifix or another labor estimating guide like Motors or Chilton's, if Chilton's is still around. But the bottom line is the pain point is that my estimates from technicians can be inconsistent and unprovable. There was actually a dealership that I was in, won't call it any names, but the pricing strategy was a guy who sat behind a big drafting table in the back of the shop that technicians would walk over and ask how much labor this operation took on this car, which was a good system for them. This one is a little bit more elegant and I think is going to be able to promote a little bit more consistency. As a part of that pain point is that I have to use a third-party estimating guide for my unsupported make. So if you're quoting labor on used cars, it gets even harder. If I'm a Chevy store and I'm looking at a Subaru, this is going to allow you to, I guess, free yourself or adjust your relationship with any third-party estimating guides that you use. Pardon me. Pain point number 3, my parts department spends too much time copying and pasting part numbers. That's something that we've definitely gotten feedback on from the field. And the service pricing and inspect allows visibility from both the technician and the parts counter person into those recommended parts by Motors. So that's another pain point that this can help with. The next pain point would be when making a recommendation, techs don't currently know if the replacement part is in stock. So there are absolutely ways for them to check stock on a certain thing, but I guess in practice I don't see that happening in a lot of stores that we visit. You could just send a chat message and ask how many of these are in stock, but I'll show you when I get into the live demo that you have instant visibility into whether or not a given part is in stock. What that allows the technician to do is just readjust. For example, if I'm recommending an alternator and it's not in stock, then I'm likely going to be able to put that back together and ship it rather than waiting around to see if it's in stock or not. So it just helps streamline things and take some of the guesswork out of it. And the last pain point is that currently, as Matt referenced, if I want to change pricing, I have to change it in Xtime and then also send those changes to support or Xtime performance management. And the use of these tools allows you to, like we mentioned, make that pricing change one time in one place to have one price. So, going to come to another poll question. And that poll question is, I family price items because it's easier, not because it makes more money. And that's going to be an agree or disagree. Tabulating.
All right, we'll give it a few extra moments here. Looks like most people have voted. All right. So similar results again, 81% agree.
Overwhelmingly agree. All right. So one of the things, as I mentioned, that this tool allows you to do is to free yourself from family pricing. And it's something that, because of the complexity of years, makes, models, engine sizes, drive types, now fuel types, it in the past didn't make sense to do a parts and labor price for every service, especially the most common ones. But I guess the consensus is that now with these tools, we have the ability to price based on parts matrix price, whatever your pricing strategy is for that stocking group, to get your full margin and also to use your labor rate and get your full labor gross. So allowing yourself to be freed from family pricing is going to help you maximize your service gross. It's also going to maximize efficiency in parts quoting. So that means since parts counter people have access to the same visibility of parts that the technicians do, it's going to make them work more efficiently and a little bit more quickly in a lot of cases. It's going to help you hold your parts counter people accountable with some new reporting that has been released. It's going to help you increase your effective labor rate, because instead of doing all cabin filters at $69.99, you can do whatever the labor time is with your full labor rate, as opposed to having to chop it down. It's going to allow, I guess, an outcome of that is to increase your gross profit percentage. And then it's also going to empower your technicians to work more efficiently, as I mentioned, with visibility into quantity on hand. One of the biggest things it accomplishes is that it squashes inconsistency. So effectively, whoever in the dealership is providing that price, specifically any technician that it goes to, is going to give the same price regardless of the individual adding the service. And again, just to mention, it can potentially replace other sources of labor estimation. All right, so we're now going to jump into a live demo. All right, so everybody on the call should recognize this. This is just a test RO and a test store. So if I scroll down to my add service button, if you're not currently using service pricing, this will look unfamiliar, but basically this new modal is going to look familiar because Matt covered the modal in the first part of the presentation. So it's going to look eerily similar to service quoting. This is obviously a different vehicle, but I just want to run through a couple recommendations so you can see what a technician would see. So let's say, for example, in this car, I want to replace a steering knuckle. It's going to pull the labor for both sides, one side, front, rear. So we're going to go with one side, front. And let's see, let's go with the left front. So as you can see, it's a good example. In the previous view, if the part exists in my DMS, then it's going to give me the DMS parts price based on whatever pricing strategy is assigned to that stocking group. But if it does not exist in my DMS, then it'll give me MSRP or list. Again, obviously I have zero quantity on hand, but that's because the part does not exist in my DMS. So once I add that service, it's going to default to adding another. And what I like about this is the same smart search that service quoting uses. So let's say, for example, I misspell the word brake. The search is smart enough to see that I do actually mean brake rather than B-R-E-A-K. So let's see if I want to look for a door lock actuator. Pardon me. Let's just go with one side and then front left door lock actuator. Another thing that I really like about the new service pricing and inspect modal is that before we didn't have any visibility in the supersession, and I know some makes are heavier on supersession than others, but it's nice to have visibility into it for both technicians and parts. And so let's say I want to add something that's more common, like replacing a cabin filter. I have the ability again to use my labor time times my grid or my my flat rate hours, or my flat rate labor rate. So it supports either an override for family pricing, although we don't recommend it, but it also supports pricing using parts and labor. So I mentioned also that parts has the same ability to see the recommended parts for any service. So the technician, for example, adds an replacement of an alternator. When parts comes in to do that estimate, they can either do the old-fashioned way if they prefer it, which is to look it up in the OEM catalog and enter the part number, or they can use this modal, which will pop up with the motor's recommended parts. So as far as the reporting aspect, one of the things that we've gotten a lot of requests from the field in the past is reporting on parts person output production. Previously, we only had the ability to view, I guess, parts department performance by the department as a whole, but in the new Common Ops parts productivity report, it's going to allow me to see counterperson by counterperson, how many quotes have been completed, what the average time by parts counterperson is to complete the estimate, and it's going to give some good drill down on efficiency of the parts counter people. All right, and that concludes the live app demo. Let me toss it back to Mr. Warpinski.
All right, and you guys should be seeing my new tools for pricing administration, correct?
We can see it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Will. We'll jump in and keep going. So new tools for pricing admin. How do we do it, right? That's the big thing. How do we do this? So we're going to buzz through some of this stuff here, and then we'll get to the Q&A, make sure that we've got time for you guys. It's all under one roof in catalogs, right? That's where we're going to have all of our information that is needed for both of these tools to provide the pricing that your team is going to have in front of them. Motors is going to provide, we get our data from Motors, Motors gets their data from the OEs. So we import up to 900 services from Motors to your catalog, and those labor times and the required parts are also going to be there, as well as the MSRP pricing, as Will had shown you guys there, right? So it's great because even if it's not an active part, if I'm in inspect and I've got a Volkswagen at a Chevy dealership, I can still see what the MSRP is for that part without having to call that VW dealer. So good data, whether it's our supported makes or not. Integrated parts pricing and on-hand quantities, and that's something that you saw when I had done the initial quote, where you could see all the oil filters that we had on hand, as well as that DMS parts pricing. More control over labor pricing and grids. And guys, right now we are in the process of getting all of our labor grids and pricing into our catalog, so it all is going to live in one place for you. And that's, again, just making it easy so that it's not just updating the op codes, but your grids, everything is all in one place. And now, how can we customize this, right? How can we customize this for your stores? And I've got a big picture that I kind of think about with this whole thing. Parts and fluid, right? Well, we can customize the parts and fluid. If you have, I mean, call it what it is. I don't mind buying OE parts, right? But if I've got a 55-gallon drum of brake fluid out back, well, I want to be able to use that part number and customize it in my catalog, which we can do. Labor times and labor rates. Again, we can set up these services so that they have a specific labor rate, a specific labor time, in specific parts and parts override. So there's some really cool stuff that we can do. Custom calculated pricing based on VIN, right? And what I mean by that is I may have 4 or 5 different prices. I come from a GM background where, you know, Silverados had how many different types of trans flushes in that when they were releasing some of the newer models. And we have to be able to dictate pricing based on the VIN, which is something that we can do. All right, so parts customization and functionality. As you guys can see, we've got a really pretty little button there that's blue, and it says pull DMS parts pricing and inventory, right? So here's what we can do. We can update the description of the part. We can update the part number. We can update the manufacturer code that we're pulling. And what is that going to do for us? We can pull on-hand quantity and DMS parts pricing, and we can very easily update the pricing by pushing this one button. Guys, if you think about it, the DMS is the Bible when it comes to your parts, right? So if we have all of the prices in here, that's pulling from your DMS, we're pinging the DMS. You guys can see in the screenshot, we're going to ping the DMS for the part number that's associated. If it is a active part, we are going to pull in the DMS parts price right here and give you that on-hand quantity. So what's really nice too is that our parts managers in the new setup are going to have access to the catalog, so they can come in here and make sure that all these part numbers are the correct part numbers. If we have ones that we've got to update, they will have the access to do that. And once those part numbers are in and everything's set up the way we want, if we have a update in my DMS, all I've got to do once the part numbers are in here is come back in and push one button, pull DMS parts pricing inventory, right? So we're talking about making it as easy as possible for you guys. All right, now here's something that I think is super cool. Add specific parts to services, right? And as you guys can see, this is a really good example of what we're trying to do. We can define a manufacturer code, dictate quantity used for that service, and we have the ability to include or exclude those motor parts, right? So if Motors is saying I need 3 different Canuter valves and I want to add a gasket for that, well, I can put all of those on my service because we now have the functionality to do a parts override. As you guys can see, this is a BG fuel system service in my catalog. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do an override. I'm going to use my opcode BG fuel. I can put a labor rate in here and the labor time, and again, that's great, but it's going to all put together basically a service price guide, if you know what I'm saying. Here's what's cool on this specific screen. Parts override. So I'm going in here and I'm telling the catalog when a BG fuel system service is added, I'm going to use this specific part right here, and it's going to pull my on-hand pricing, right? It's going to pull my on-hand quantity. Now, here's the beautiful thing. Once I load this in, that's automatically going to come up every single time I am pulling the service. And here's what my final product looked like, right? I pull up my BG fuel system service. As you guys can see, I've got my labor time, I've got my parts, and there's my total. Here is my DMS parts price on the bottom because I have associated this specific part number. And when I add this service and we put it in on the RO, this is how it comes across to my parts team, right? So in inspect, my parts team now has this part popping up, and this is all they have to do. It's right there for them, right? So, you know, guys, think big picture, right? We're going to jump into labor and keep going with this because I want to make sure, again, we have time for Q&A. But when we're thinking about the big picture, we can create custom pay types, okay? If you've got electronic vehicles, if you've got diesels, I come from a GM shop where we had fleets and we had both. We had electronic vehicles and we had diesels and we had different labor rates for everything. We can do that, okay? Ability to add and modify grids in the catalog. And this to me is one of the coolest things. I've got a picture right here. This is a grid in our catalog and it uploads just like we do with our inspect side. It's just an Excel spreadsheet, or if you are so inclined, you literally can just click into any one of these little cells and update a price when you're in our catalog. So we now have the ability and the functionality to add a grid into the catalog. Again, we're trying to get everything into one place to make it as easy as possible for you. The other thing too, you can dictate service times or utilize Motors times, right? So for that BG service, if I want to create a BG fuel induction service that pays my technician 0.8 and uses my specific grid right here, well, then it's easy. I set the system up that way. I put my parts override in, I put my labor time override in, and I put the pay type that I want to pull from. And here's the deal too that I think is pretty cool. Let's say my technicians are going, you know what, these times that we're getting are a little bit lower than what we're used to. Well, now in our system, you can add a labor time multiplier, right? Labor time multiplier to all the labor times that we're getting from Motors. And you can update that percentage. And then if you hit the C examples, it'll show you kind of roughly what that's going to do at those different increments in hours. So new tools for pricing admin. Let's put this all together, right? When we have a part and we have a labor rate in my grid, right? Here's the beautiful thing here, guys, right? Think about this. If my part is associated, okay, my part's associated and my labor grid is in there. Now I can update my parts by pushing that one little blue button. I can update my grids in one place, and if all my services are set up properly, now we're talking about being efficient and doing it all in one place at one time, right? So again, we can create custom service operations, including parts and fluids. We can use motors times or customize those. We can include grids, pay types, and assign operations. So guys, there's a ton that we can do in here, and if you kind of smell what I'm saying here, this is something that is going to be a service price guide that you guys can utilize and do in one place at one time. And we'll wrap it up here, guys. In conclusion, our new pricing estimating tools allow you to maximize your gross profit, efficiency, accuracy, and consistency throughout your dealership process, right? The pricing tool can modernize, supercharge your current quoting process. Guys, that quoting functionality, it's one of the coolest things out there, and it's going to really modernize how you do your business. And our new pricing tools give you the total control over your pricing across all Xtime tools and platforms. Getting back to thinking about the big picture, right? When we can put everything in one place and update things very simply and easily, it just gives you that control that I think everyone out there wants. So that's what we've got for right now. We will jump into our Q&A section, and Mr. Will's going to head off most of the questions that we've got today.
All right, so in case you joined late, I want to just remind you that if you do have questions, you can enter them in the GoToWebinar console on the right-hand side of your screen. We have had a few come in already, so we can go ahead and get into those. First one here, what DMS systems is this compatible with? Is it only DealerTrack DMS?
Currently, it is only available for DealerTrack DMS customers with Schedule for service quoting for Schedule, and then with Inspect for service pricing and Inspect. So yes, DealerTrack only. Great question.
All right. Next one here, are these features paid products, and how do I go about activating them?
Yes, so both, like I said at the beginning, both are going to be available independently or together. They are both paid subscriptions, and for pricing, you can reach out to either your performance manager or to our sales team for pricing.
Sounds good, thank you. Next one here, I don't have Xtime Inspect. Can I still use these tools?
Great question. We mentioned it earlier, but if you have Schedule only and are not using Inspect, then you can use service quoting for Schedule. But obviously for Inspect, you would not be able to utilize service pricing, but we'd love to have you on the Inspect train using service pricing and Inspect.
All right, thanks, Will. Next one here. Can you create overrides for specific vehicle sets? For instance, my diesel vehicles use different chemicals than the gas cars.
Yes, so the answer is yes. We have a number of different qualifiers, so you can create a vehicle group based on any criteria that you want, whether that's fuel type. We have a lot of diesel versus gas, or EV versus diesel, or all those sorts of things. You can create vehicle groups that you can reuse throughout the tool. So if you have 40 operations that you want to be priced differently for this specific vehicle group, then you can apply that group in the pricing strategy for that service and for all those services. So you build a group once, use it wherever you want to.
All right, thanks. Next one here. Do quotes automatically add the line or parts to the DMS?
Do quotes automatically add the line to the DMS? So when you create a quote and then transition it to an appointment, then when that appointment is checked in or the RO is written up, it will add a line to the DMS with that opcode, the associated opcode with that service. I think the subtext in the question, that does it automatically bill the parts out on the DMS, and the answer to that is currently no, but it will push the opcode with the description.
I think the key to that answer is currently.
Currently.
Okay, next one here. I use AllData for labor times. Does it integrate with AllData?
So good question, and AllData is one of the more popular estimating guides, but unfortunately our integration is strictly with the Motors labor estimating guide. And if you talk to 100 service managers, there's 100 different opinions on who's right, but we built out a really robust integration with Motors, and we also built in the labor time markup that should, I think they're usually within 5 or 10% for most cases. There may be an outlier here or there, but yeah, the short answer, I gave you the long answer, is that we don't integrate with AllData, but we do currently integrate with Motors.
And Will, if I can just jump in on that too, one of the pilot stores that I had worked with on the quote functionality actually had a bunch of their technicians sit down with the manager and go through a lot of the labor times for the repairs that they were doing on a regular basis. And the variations were very, very minimal. But again, the beautiful part of it is that they were able to update it, right? So to those guys that have have one of those other time guides, you can have that other time guide, but it's going to give you the times. Where what we're currently able to do is now we're pulling that data into our system, giving you that data as well as allowing you the ability to control and update that the way you want. So I think that's a big part of what we can do.
All right, next one here. Where are OE part numbers pulled from for inspect quoting?
They're pulled from the motors required parts. So in the motors labor estimating guide, they also have assigned parts. So it's going to pull both your primary parts and also your optional parts. And we have the ability to set whether it pre-selects them for the technician or whether it unselects them for the technician, and you can break that down by repair or maintenance.
All right,
And I
thanks,
guess
Will.
it's another process that it supports is if your technicians don't want to be don't particularly want to be involved in the parts process, then they can leave the parts field blank and let parts do their normal thing. It's really up to your discretion what process you want to coach, and yeah, we leave that in the dealer's court, in the service director's court.
Next question, will it still separate warranty from customer pay?
As far as labor rate, I would assume separate warranty from customer pay. So we have the ability to support 2 labor rates. Is there? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's we can dictate the labor rates in the catalog. So if they are going to select that, but I think the question there is when we're talking about the quote side of it. In most cases, it's hard to quote warranty, right? That's a little bit difficult. We're typically taking that diagnosis. On the back end, on the technician side, if the technicians are selecting those services, they can dictate the pay types that they are selecting that for, so that they absolutely have the ability to select which pay type we're using.
All right, thanks for reading between the lines there, Matt. Next one here, will these features also be available on the Xtime mobile app?
Oh, for adding services? Yes. Service pricing and inspect is supported by the mobile app.
All right, pretty simple answer there. It looks like we don't have any more coming in, so we can go ahead and wrap up today's webinar. Matt and Will, thanks for an informative and engaging session. Do you have any closing thoughts before we log off?
Reach out to your performance manager if you have any questions, and our contact info is also on the screen. If we can help you in any way, just reach out, let us know.
Yeah, thanks for spending time with us today, guys.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody who attended. Thanks for taking the time out of your day. And just a brief reminder, we will send out a recording of this presentation after the fact. All right, thank you.